Yeah, I just want to link, I would like to link this discussion here to what Philip said earlier on about this system of deferral, essentially. Very much because, from my perspective, things are very much project-based. And this is also why I think if we think of it as a process, as an ongoing process, as an artist or something, this notion of investment again and funding, it goes into that pool of deferrals, as it were, where you plug in and out depending on where those things happens to be. Essentially, this idea of having a project that you say that in 5 years' time this will have generated this or that is very much a fiction. In most cases, a fantasy put down for financial purposes very often. But I think it's a more useful way to think of it in terms of this system of deferral, the pool that can develop.
I think that I agree. I think we've got to an interesting point where how do you bring the sociology and the law into relationship? I mean, just setting aside, if you like, policy questions. The points about understanding the law. Most people don't, I guess, is where we start. But people actually do understand their immediate networks of relationships and what is achievable within them. And even if you're doing project-based things, you will no doubt have a set of people that you can call on for things over time. If space engineering is you, basically, it'll be implicated in a kind of network which probably has a relative stability over time, in as much as people can sustain their effort. So I think I think where our project has got to, at least from a sociological point of view, is that we need to understand this a hell of a lot better. If the top-down approaches of law and policy are actually to engage and possibly effectively help people in sustaining creative activity on a much larger scale than is presently the case. And I don't know the answers, but I think what's been interesting is it's pushed us to some new questions, really. So I think your sense of what happens over time is right. I mean, at least from the limited empirical work we've done.
Thank you. That's good. Okay, we're going to be drawing this to a close in a couple of minutes, but I know a few people wanted to get quick comments in. So yourself, and then Andreas.
Just very, very briefly, thank you very much. I just wanted to react very, very briefly there, because what I have found absolutely fascinating in this discussion that has come up just over the last few people that have spoken is the distinction between the process and the outcome. It's the exploitation of the outcome. And this is one of the things that I think we, sort of brought up quite starkly in the work that we were doing. There's two very different things here going on, which I think is fascinating. Sorry, thank you.
And I've also been fascinated by the discussion that moved towards the exploitation and kind of looking at also the collecting agencies and the opaque nature of these collecting agencies and transparent nature of that. And that one way forward that I've always been thinking is to have a more regulatory attention towards what these collecting agencies are doing with that money, and maybe even thinking towards having cross-subsidies within that sector from the mainstream, who always have many more opportunities to create added value, towards more less popular, let's say, genres or musicians within that kind of industry. And it also struck to me that we haven't quite addressed the current policy kind of reactions to file sharing and how fans basically deal with music and what role it plays in their life at the moment, which is being now met with a very repressive regime that in a sense also has consequences for our online privacy and how that kind of forcing people back into an exchange model, and maybe your experiences are also double in that regard, having started in 2001 until now, in terms of the difficulty of making money out of selling recorded physical products. versus now also the detrimental effects, but also the opportunities that this new environment creates.
For me, certainly, when I started the recording of an album, you'd see that as a method of perhaps getting some income in return. Now I see it as purely a promotional tool, and it's such a shame when you're creating something and it's something that's what you wanted to make and that's what you wanted to get out there, that you cannot, I don't foresee how you're going to make any money from it. At the same time, when we had our song on Skins, we had 10,000 plays of that song a week on Spotify, so the kids were listening to it, they just weren't actually buying it. So we did gain fans, and you could see that you were accessing fans, but it certainly isn't, it's not a method anymore for making money.
Very good. Quick comment?
Just, we've concentrated very much on people who want to commercialise their music, but there's an awful lot of people who don't, who maybe make income in other ways, and I think they also have rights, responsibilities and opportunities that perhaps don't always get seen in the sort of wider scheme of funding and so on. So it's just a thought.
Good point. Very good point.
Comes back to this, and what you have said as well is exactly that. I mean, we talked about the economic benefit, but what happens actually to art which has no perceptible, no measurable economic benefit at all? Is that worse art? Is that not worth being promoted? I think it is. The economic benefit, just sort of an addendum, I would say, it just happens or not. Or not in one lifetime, it may happen 100 years later or something. I mean, is it not the creative process, really, which is worth being protected for its own sake, rather than having, a kind of product in the end which you can sell? So that is sort of, I think, a bit of a problem.
Thank you. Very valuable. Thanks very much indeed, Tamara, for your generosity, really, and sharing all those insights. Great presentation. Thank you.
Thank you both very much for a really, really interesting session. Thank you.